Hello, I'm so glad you're here today. I am going to go over some of the reading tips that I gave the last time I did children's reading stories. And then I'm going to read a couple stories for you and your children. And I just want to give you some example of how to read to your children. And also I want to tell you how important it is, again, that reading to your children often and reading to them and allowing them to follow along with their finger so that they know where you're at, or you do it if they are too small to know the words yet. You follow along with your finger and they will start to do that also. Eventually they'll know the book by reading it again and again, which is usually what happens. They have their favorites. And so you will be the one that will be reading them. And once they are able to figure out certain words, they can start reading themselves. And until that, they love to look at books and the pictures, and they might make up their own story to go with that. So it's really important to make sure you have books available for your children through your own little library, that you can pick up books at the thrift stores, at the used books. You can get them at the used bookstores, or you can go to your library. They have a lot of resources there, and you can let your children pick out some of their own books. Some of the other thing is to try to read to them every day so that they get used to being read to, and they get used to having books and looking at books, so when they go to school it'll be familiar and they'll be ahead of the game. They won't be behind in reading or loving books. Now, if they have some difficulties, they may need extra help when they get to school. But the fact that you've given them books, you've read to them, and they enjoy books is going to be half the battle, getting them up to speed with reading. So, the other thing is to make sure when you're reading to them that you're making it exciting and you're using some different kinds of voices, or maybe you're singing a song that's in the book. But whatever you're doing, you're making it fun, exciting, and you can show reflection or inflections in your voice. If there's an angry dad, or if there's a happy dad, or if there's a puppy or an animal, you can make animal sounds. There's so many things you could do to make the book fun and exciting for them. So I'm going to go ahead and read a couple books to you right now. This one is called Opposite. And opposite is just very simple, showing children what opposite means. It's a big word, but the opposite of something. So this is written by Betty Neal and illustrated by Brenda Taylor. Okay, and it's a read with me book. So it's a reader book, and the first page, there's lots of different things going on in this book, but this one is where it starts. Old, new, opposites. The opposite of old is new. Okay, nice pictures. Up, down, opposites. Night, day, opposites. Tall, short, opposites. Which one do you think is the tall? Which one do you think is the short? Cold, brr, hot, opposites. On, off, opposites. On, off, opposites. And this one's stuck together. Stop, go, opposites. Does mommy go on red or stop on red? Okay, so you can ask a few questions as you go through. Make it a little more interesting for them. And this little girl, you could see that she's in footies and she's a teddy bear. So this level is kind of showing you it's for younger kids. It's very simple reading, simple words, except for opposite, which is a big word. But if you could say this is the opposite of this, after you read this book, you can start talking about opposite. You know, when you're doing things together or you're in the house, you could say the opposite of being in the house is being outside the house. So you could just start using that word and they'll identify it with the book that you just read. Okay? And there's several of those that I have that were readers that were given to my son when he was learning to read. And they're all pretty simple, but they have different levels. This one is about new. Okay, new things. So you could start introducing the word new and what that means. What's new? What's old? Okay. And this is written by Catherine Persch and illustrated by Roxanne Ressler. Okay. So, you kind of have an idea what it might be about. And you can ask that, what do you think this book is about? Looking at the front page. That's a moving truck. Okay. New town. There's a new town. New neighborhood. What would be the opposite of new town? Old town? New neighbor. What would be the opposite of new neighbor? Now that you know the word opposite. Old neighbor. New house. Now everything is backwards in my view. And they're moving into a new house and they moved out of their old house. That's the opposite. New room. Old room. You left your old room. That's the opposite. New friend. New school. Same old me. Okay, so now you can start adding that word new and the word opposite and talking about what's new, what's old, and what's opposite of all the things that you see and do. So those are all learning tools for them and words that they need to know so that when they're identifying things or seeing things in a book or at school, they can use the proper words. Okay, now there's several others, but I'm just going to read those two of the younger kids' books. And then I'm going to read this book, which is one that most kids always like, animal books. This one's Clifford's Puppy Days. So this is one of the very first Clifford books because he's just a puppy And they have several as he gets bigger and bigger. And at the beginning of this book, he's going to be big because he's being introduced by Elizabeth, who is his owner. And this was written by Norman Bridwell. And it's a Scholastics Incorporated printed book. And I should have looked at this sooner, but he may have written and illustrated, because I cannot find any different than that. Okay, so here's Elizabeth and Clifford. He's the big red dog. So, Clifford. Hi, we are Clifford and Elizabeth. Let me turn this just a little. We are Clifford and Emily Elizabeth. Clifford is my dog. He's pretty big. Yes, he's very big. Clifford wasn't always so big. When he was a puppy, he was very, very small. I had to be careful when I played with him. He was too small to fetch a ball. He was too small. Look at the ball is bigger than him. Then, poor little Clifford, he wanted to play with my toys. But they were bigger than he was also. Look at that. The dolly and the teddy bear bigger than Clifford when he's a puppy. They were too big, and Clifford was too small to play with them. But he liked the merry-go-round I made for him. Has anyone ever seen one of those? Those are record players. They're coming back again. I haven't seen any for a long time now. All the young kids are wanting a record player again. Oh. On cold winter days, Clifford found snugly warm places to sleep. Where is he? Do you see him? Oh, he's in her jacket sleeve. Oh, what about this side? Oh, he's in her hat. Silly little Clifford. And there he is in her hat. We put a clock by his bed at night. The ticking seemed to put him to sleep. Tick, 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 tick. And Elizabeth's all snug in her bed. Once I forgot to turn off the alarm. Ring, 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 ring. At first, Clifford bathed in our bathtub because he was small enough. And then what happened? He slipped off the soap one day and I almost lost him. Oh no. After that, I bathed him in a soup bowl. there's Elizabeth giving little puppy Clifford a bath. Oh, Daddy was surprised when I told him what I had used for Clifford's bathtub. Daddy was eating his soup out of that same bowl. Ooh, yucky. Hopefully, Mommy washed it first. It was fun having such a small puppy, but Clifford was easy to lose. One day, my aunt came to visit. What's Clifford doing? There's the aunt, and Clifford is looking at her purse. And what did he do? He was inside her purse. When she left, we looked all over for our small red puppy. My aunt found him in the bake shop. When she went to the bake shop, she opened her purse and guess who's in there? Clifford the puppy. Uh-oh. There he is in the bake shop, jumping on all the things in there. Clifford was scared and he popped into the cream puffs. Ooh, cream puffs. Then he ran through the pies. Oh no! That baker must have been upset. The baker tried to catch him, but Clifford climbed up the wedding cake. Oh no! Not the wedding cake, Clifford. Oh, that's a big mess. And hid in the whipped cream. Puppies and doggies like whipped cream. And there's the bakery on the outside because the baker said, "Out!" The baker was a little upset. "Out, little puppy, out! Out of my bakery!" Oh, what a mess. My aunt didn't know what to do. She didn't want to bring Clifford home looking like that. Oh, yes, he has stuff all over him. Oh, and that little boy has a big St. Bernard. A small boy with a big dog had an idea. He said his dog loved whipped cream. And what did he do? There he is. In no time, Clifford was all cleaned up because the big doggy licked all the whipped cream off. I was so happy to have Clifford come home. The dog who brought him to me was the biggest dog I'd ever seen. There he is. The auntie, the big doggy and his little friend, and then Elizabeth and Clifford. She was so happy to have her puppy back again. And here is Clifford. Clifford got bigger than the other doggy, much bigger, until Clifford grew up and was bigger than all of the other doggies. Clifford, you're such a cute little doggy. So there are many Clifford books, and on the back it shows you all the different Clifford books that you could get and read about. And almost everyone loves doggies and puppies. Even if they don't have one, they love to read about them and they love to watch them play. So these are good books for kids to read, and they're very colorful. They're simpler reading, so as they get older and they can read words, this one is a good one for reading once you have some words under in your vocabulary bank and in your spelling and reading bank. So those are a couple of the different kinds of books there are. Some are for very young and some are for a little bit older, and then some are for very big, not very big, but older children. Like this one is called The Story of Ping. I'm not going to read it right now, but I just wanted to show you an example of one that you would need to have a lot more words to read, because the pages look like this. This is a fun one because there's a little repeat message in here, and so you get to kind of do some fun rhyming and repeats sounds like ba la 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 la, which is fun to say. Okay, and then I wanted to show you one more thing. They have poetry for children. So sometimes children will like to hear a poem if you want to share those with them. And then when they get into school, they might be asked to write a poem, and so this will help get them introduced to this. This is a very old poetry book, 85 Childhood Favorites, the Big Golden Book of Poetry, it's called. And this one is actually an old library book. Sometimes a library will clean out books. Different libraries will close, or they'll clean out their books and get rid of them. And this one, this house that I live in right now was a Montessori school before we moved in here. And my mother-in-law owned the house, and she had a Montessori school here in this house. So a lot of the books that are here have been left over from the school that she had, so they're older and very kid-oriented books, lots of books for kids. And this was one of those called The Golden Book of Poetry, edited by Jane Werner and illustrated by Gertrude Elliott. So in this particular book, you have lots of authors of the poems, and then you have one person who did the illustrating, apparently. And so this shows you all the different poems there are in this book. And I'll just give you an example. Some are long and some are shorter. And let me find one that works for us today. Okay. So, this one is about the wind. And this is by Edmund Clarence Stedman. Which is the wind that brings the cold? The north wind? Freddie and all the snow. And the sheep will scamper into the fold when the north wind begins to blow. Which is the wind that brings the heat? The south wind? Katie and corn will grow. And peaches reddened for you to eat when the south winds begin to blow. Which is the wind that brings the flowers? The west wind, Bessie, and soft and low the bridges sing in the summer hours when the west winds begin to blow. So they get a little different type of words. Some of the poems that you read are rhyming poems. Some are more old-fashioned wording, like this one has a little bit of different wording in it. But here's the illustrations that were made for this wind. See all the wind, different wind pictures of each corner. Very cute. Okay, and so there are many in here. So if you have a child's poem book, you could read them a poem every night before bed, or well, right before dinner time, anytime, nap time. And I love poetry. I love to write poetry, and I've posted some of them through my podcast that I've written for mothers. And so if you want to read some or hear some poems about mothers, you can go there. And poems are fun to write, and you can help your children write a poem to put in a card for somebody's birthday or for aunt or uncle, grandparents. And you could just ask them what they want to say, and then you can help them turn it into a poem. It's pretty fun. Okay, so I'm going to let you go, and I'll be back again to read you some more stories and give you some more tips. And I hope you have a beautiful day. It's sunny here in Montana today. It's a little chilly, but it is a gorgeous day. So go out, love your children, read to them, and have a wonderful, wonderful day with your family. Even if it's in the evening when everyone's home, have a great dinner. Bye-bye.